During the mid-2000s, Cartoon Network was on top of their game, but there's one series in particular that stands above the rest. You know him, it's Ed, Edd and Eddy. Ed, Edd and Eddy is a 2D animated slapstick comedy series created by Danny Antonucci. We follow three punks named Edward on their quest to obtain jawbreakers. They scam their neighbors for pocket change, but these hustles usually end in disaster. Along the way, the Ed Boys will confront the problems of jealousy, embarrassment, and eventually going back to school. The show ran from 1999 to 2009, and since then, it's fondly remembered by millennials and Gen Z adults alike. It had 5 seasons and won multiple awards. Despite this success, legitimate deep dives on the series are rare. It's rather frustrating because this show has a lot to offer. The animation was ambitious. The writing was more suited towards the MTV crowd than a bunch of grade schoolers. It openly defied many of the trends common in children's television at the time, but it's special for one other reason. Today is my 27th birthday. Ed, Edd and Eddy is my favorite animated series of all time. It's what partly inspired me to take up drawing as a hobby. Why not give thanks to the people who helped create my childhood? This is a historical/opinionated analysis on Ed, Edd and Eddy. I'm gonna go over the production history, my favorite episodes, and the gut-wrenching series finale. This is your one and only spoiler warning, but this show is old enough to rent a car in the United States. I wouldn't sweat it. Our story begins with Daniel Danny Antonucci. He was born on February 27, 1957, coming from a family of Italian immigrants. Throughout the 1980s, Danny worked on commercials and made his own short film. In the 90s, he became a regular contributor on music television. MTV was so impressed with his work, they gave him his own series. This was my first time combing through Danny's early filmography. I was impressed and slightly disturbed at the same time. His animations were riddled with bold designs and a disdain for conformity. This is what makes Danny so fascinating as a creator. He wasn't driven by money or fame, but by not giving a damn. He rarely caved to focus groups or corporate interference. This punk rock attitude was a perfect fit for MTV. In 1994, Antonucci founded AKA Cartoon, a production studio based in Vancouver, Canada. Their first project was The Brothers Grunt, a surrealist What am I watching?
That's disturbing.
To tell you the truth, I couldn't get past episode 2, and neither could MTV, so MTV pulled the plug. This would have been the end for Danny's career, but he got a second wind. Danny was dared by a coworker to pitch his own children's cartoon. He was initially hesitant to pivot from adult content to something that skewed younger. Knowing his personality, he took the challenge anyway. In 1996, AKA Cartoon produced the Ed, Edd and Eddy Pitch Bible. A pitch Bible is a document that explains the core tenets of a TV show, such as its premise and characters. TV Bibles are a way of selling the show to potential investors. These Bibles are fascinating because they give an intimate look into a show's early conception.
But we're constrained by the intimacy of our situation.
And you kiss your mother with that mouth?
TV Bibles aren't generally released to the general public. But thanks to die-hard Ed fans, we have a treasure trove of early concepts. I highly recommend reading through it on the Internet Archive if you ever get the chance. For brevity's sake, I'll just go over the big stuff. The original tagline was, "Puberty is unforgiving." The Bible mentions that the cul-de-sac, the main setting of the show, is located in the United States. In the final version, its true location is kept vague. Peach Creek, the name of the town, is never stated in this document. It's clear that some elements weren't set in stone yet. So what about the rest of the Bible? There's not much to say because most of what you see here ended up in season 1. I can respect the studio for not wasting any previous work. But the biggest omission was the school. In the character bios, it hints at the Ed boys going to school. Ed had trouble paying attention in class, Double D was scarred by the dodgeball incident, Eddy was a class clown, and did a prank so bad he got expelled for a week. Why is any of this noteworthy? The first 4 seasons were stuck in a perpetual summer. The creators had no intention of writing outside that time frame. What I just read here were only included to better flesh out the Ed Boys. Unbeknownst to the creators, the school idea will come back in full circle in Season 5. Many of those previous ideas were greatly expanded upon. Season 5 was a massive shift in direction, and as a result, it brought its own share of growing pains. We'll get to that soon enough. For now, let's check back on Antonucci. Danny began shopping his pitch to Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon liked the pitch, but refused to give him full creative control over the production. What did Danny mean by having full creative control? As long as he didn't violate standards and practices, Danny could run his project with minimal interference. It's wild to think about, but there was an alternate universe where the Ed Boys became a Nicktoon. It's kind of fun to think about.
I'm thinking. Can I think? No!
Although Nick did create its own trio of dorks. Danny went to Cartoon Network with his demands. The network agreed, and thus an Ed was born. With all that history out of the way, let's dive into the actual show. How exactly did Ed, Edd and Eddy become a cultural juggernaut? It's quite intriguing.
Intriguing?
Ed, Edd and Eddy is an episodic comedy show with minimal continuity. It's set in the fictional town of Peach Creek. The Ed Boys come up with schemes, colloquially known as scams, to extract money from their neighbors. These schemes range from selling lemonade, to selling jewelry, or making their own city in their backyard. Soon, the scam falls apart and they get the sour taste of defeat. That's the framework for most episodes. 3 boys stuck on summer vacation try to buy candy or make their own fun. The beauty of this format was that it wasn't rigid. There are several episodes where the goal isn't to scam or one-up their classmates, but rather to just play in their own roleplay games. There are so many classic episodes, it'd be hard to pick a favorite, but we hit a snag. What happens when you start running out of ideas? The original format lost its luster by Season 4. It was getting harder to create new scenarios with the same locations and same set of characters. Season 5 decided to make huge changes. Whether the creators were successful or not, we'll find out soon enough. For now, let's figure out why this show works so well.
Don't even think about it! Think about it!
Please, Ed, no more rhymes.
The most critical element for any TV show is having a great cast. Are they entertaining to watch? Do they bounce off each other really well? Ed, Edd and Eddy passes this test in flying colors. The characters are bold and easily distinguishable from one another. You take one good look at their walk cycle and right away, you know what their personality is. Let's take a look at the Ed Boys. Ed is the dumb yet strong type. Ed, also known as Double D, is a brainiac who never takes off his beanie. Eddy is the greedy yet charismatic frontman of the group. Taken together, they're 3 nervous outcasts who are able to synergize their skills. The writers did an amazing job making this friendship feel authentic. The Ed Boys behave like real teenagers. They smack talk each other, go on dangerous stunts, and read questionable magazines.
Truth or dare?
Okay, dare, Ed.
I dare you, Eddy, to sprout the wings of a bat and stomp like a zombie while whistling row, row, row your boat to a car wash.
Ed, try a more reasonable dare, please.
It also helps that the voice acting is incredible. You have the big leagues like Matt Hill as Ed, Samuel Vincent as Double D, and Tony Sampson as Eddy. You can hear every little scream, curl, and laugh through the clips I show you. I won't go through every character, but I want to go through my favorites.
You must be punished.
What is that, Rolf?
The hat of discipline. All is forgiven.
Thank you, Rolf.
Rolf is a farmer boy whose country of origin is never specified. He's openly proud from where he comes from, even if his traditions are a little off-kilter to the rest of the kids. Rolf refers to the main trio as the Ed Boys, which is such an iconic nickname, I've been using that for the whole video. His insults, which are just random non sequiturs the writers came up with, are just hysterical.
Confess to your crime, stale end piece of white bread. Your garden is overgrown and your cucumbers are soft. The burden of hospitality is too great for
and we love him for that. If you think that Rolf is nuts, then you haven't been paying attention to the art direction. Art direction is critical in order to market any cartoon. Is the art style appealing? Is it different from the competition? How well does it complement the animation? These are important questions when you're trying to market a cartoon to a mass audience.
Quack, quack! Hey, you're gonna hurt somebody! This ain't a cartoon!
Ed, Edd n Eddy is a true outlier with its weird body proportions, bold color choice, and the squiggly lines. Some detractors will argue it's borderline ugly. Antonucci wanted his show to stand out from the competition. His ethos was similar to what you see on graffiti art. He wasn't concerned with appealing to corporate hegemony. He added the boiling outlines, which was this effect where you drew the character outlines 3 times in a row and you play that on loop, and it gives the effect that the characters are bouncing even when they're technically not moving their legs. And keep in mind, they had to do this on physical paper. Everything you saw on screen had to be drawn and painted by hand. This was the last major television cartoon to be made with this method. During the late 90s, animating on computers became cheaper, faster, and easier to use than traditional animation. Antonucci, however, was ride or die with the old way, believing it had a charm that digital art couldn't replicate. Unfortunately, he had to make the switch, or else not get a 5th season. Thankfully, Ed, Edd n Eddy is backed up with legitimate artistry. The background design is top-notch. The geography of Peach Creek feels real with its ordinary houses, a landfill, the creek. Despite being a middle-class neighborhood, everything has a slightly run-down quality to it. Peach Creek doesn't feel like an artificial setting you see in a lot of other cartoons. What further helps this illusion is the storyboarding. A storyboard is a rough visual blueprint for playing out an episode. It dictates where characters will be, what they'll do, and how the camera is framed. Antonucci gave his artists a blank check to get a little experimental, and a result of this decision, the shot composition is borderline ethereal. What gave Ed, Edd n Eddy a leg up over the competition is how it plays with the illusion of depth. The artists experimented with multiple point perspective drawings. Without getting too technical, multiple point perspective is an advanced way of drawing your scenes with depth. If you look at season 2 and onward, the environments are almost never drawn with perpendicular lines, but rather they're projected at diagonal and curvy angles. This show loves to play with scale to amazing effect. This visual language is more in line with an art house movie rather than a children's show on a cable network.
Ed, how can you be so stupid?
I watch cartoons, Eddy.
My favorite example of their work is in the episode "And Ed is Born." The Ed boys make a VHS documentary to prove that Eddy is worthy of his brother's respect. It goes as well as you expect. The action is shown from the camera's point of view. It was an ambitious concept to do in old school animation, and they absolutely nailed it. Ed, Edd n Eddy didn't have the most beautiful art direction, but it was driven by ambition and talent. And they did all of this on a TV budget. That's legitimately insane. But there's another matter. Does the humor live up to this golden standard? The golden age of Ed, Edd n Eddy lasted from 1999 to 2004. It fired on all cylinders. The slapstick was great, the dialogue was sharp, and the plots themselves were imaginative. There's way too much to cover in one video. I'm gonna give my quick thoughts on each season. Season 1 is what started it all. This one feels the most like other down-to-earth cartoons in the late 90s. The plot lines were simple and the slapstick was minimal. It's a little slow compared to the rest of the show, but it has that old school charm. The best episode from this era is Dawn of the Eds. The Ed boys pretend they're inside a sci-fi cowboy movie. The show was spot on at portraying how kids played with their imagination. The characters would immerse themselves in living in a city, being filthy rich, or pretending they're using Canadian squirt guns. That's one of my favorite episodes.
A squirt gun?
Yeah, a Canadian squirt gun.
Canadians are weird.
Season 2 is where everything clicks into place. The slapstick, the scenarios, and the characters were better defined. The shot composition was at full force. The best story is 1 + 1 = Ed. The Ed boys try to figure out how the universe works. they end up distorting the fabric of reality. The visuals are trippy, need I say more?
Hello, Ed boys. Many doors yet?
A three-headed Rolf.
What about the later seasons? Seasons 3 and 4 are of similar quality, so I'm lumping them together. The show escalates the spectacle to 11. The creators have perfected this dynamic amongst the dorks. What's different with this era is the heavy influence of 2000s youth culture. In the early 2000s, American men fell in love with two things: the Tony Hawk games and MTV's Jackass. Jackass was a reality show about guys pulling pranks and stunts on one another. Antonucci didn't work on Jackass, but he worked for MTV in the mid-90s. And MTV's punk rock attitude seeped into the Ed Boys. I believe that Jackass was a major inspiration for the dorks. Both shows were about pulling life or death stunts, building crazy contraptions, and indulging in sexual innuendos. Jackass might have been made for young adults, but it could satisfy the monkey brain of adolescent boys. This youth craze was best showcased in Tony Hawk's Underground 2. In that game, Tony Hawk and Jackass star Bam Margera did a worldwide skateboarding contest. Your task was to acquire points by pulling stunts or destroying major landmarks. Wait a minute, this smells like a scam Eddy would cook up.
I can't bear to look as Rolf. Is that the support beam to the house?
What's a support beam?
Tell me about it. I lost my money.
Thug 2 would feel right at home in the world of Ed, Edd and Eddy. It's kind of a shame there wasn't an Ed/Tony Hawk cross promotion, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. But I wish it did happen, because season 4 was going to be the last hurrah for Peach Creek. In the season 4 finale, Take This Ed and Shove It, the Ed Boys create a fake algorithm for determining people's career paths. The scam is an instant hit and the Ed Boys swim in jawbreakers. Unfortunately, a freak accident knocks Eddy stone cold. Eddy then has a nightmare of everyone becoming senior citizens. Then he wakes up as an old guy for real. What a twist! I have mixed feelings about this last episode. On one hand, it's a cool inversion of seeing young characters play their older selves. This show has always been about growing up, and this was a decent way to cap it off. The ending is a little too macabre for my taste. It's a ballsy move to end an upbeat series with existential dread. It wasn't that satisfying for longtime fans. But thankfully, this was not the end. Ed and Eddy was originally meant to last 4 seasons, but thanks to its massive ratings, Cartoon Network gave the Ed Boys another leash on life. Good news, right? Well, the show was stuck between an Ed and a hard place. The television market was a radically different place in 2004 than when the show started. As the show went on, there was an increased risk of creative stagnation. If the dorks were going to survive, they had to adapt.
Oh well, can't beat 'em, eat 'em. Not bad. Huh?
Season 5 has a contentious reputation in the fandom. It brought a host of changes. Summer vacation was over and autumn was here. The characters were now dealing with middle school problems. Between 2004 and 2006, Cartoon Network had entered its city era. The first generation of original shows were on their way out, and a new wave was coming in. This era is fondly remembered for its ambitious bumpers and innovative lineup. You've got Camp Lazlo, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Puffy Ami Yumi, and so many more. These shows were explicitly set in the 21st century, while Peach Creek was beginning to seem a little old-fashioned. Ed and Eddy is set somewhere in the late 20th century before the rise of the internet. The creators purposely avoided following current trends. It was a brilliant approach for ensuring the show's evergreen status, but it had a major drawback. They were at risk of being deemed antiquated. They needed to change, and they needed to change fast. AKA Cartoon started hiring new blood. Most of season 5 was storyboarded by younger talent. Having to train new talent while making a new season at the same time undoubtedly put a lot of stress on the studio. The biggest change, however, was Rachel Luckett Connor replacing Jono Howard as the head writer. Connor was new to the industry and brought her own ideas to the table. Jono Howard, Mike Kubat, and Danny Antonucci, who wrote most of the previous episodes, stayed on as regular writers. This wasn't the biggest change, however. The show now uses digital animation. Season 5 retains the boiling lines and general art design, but the coloring was now done on computer. The choice of colors is darker, more saturated, and more washed out. It's a downgrade from the natural warm coloring we had in the pre-computer seasons. Aside from that, this season utilized more advanced camera techniques like extended camera pans and 3D effects. Thankfully, the shot composition is just as striking as before. Does the writing quality hold up as well? Not exactly.
You bet your sweet Bippy I did.
Hey, what'd I tell you?
The season opens with out with the old, in with the Ed. Ed and Eddy have gaslit their classmates into thinking school won't begin the next day. Double D exposes the scam to everyone and sends the kids into a frenzy. In part 2, the Ed boys discover they're being separated into different classes. They strike a bargain with the Cankers to fix it, but it ends in the way you expect. Out with the old, in with the Ed is underwhelming from a narrative standpoint. My problem is that there's not enough meat to justify a 22-minute runtime. There's a ton of filler to the lead up to the first day, and the plot just drags its feet. The second plot is a tiny bit better because of the Ed versus Kanker plotline. Unfortunately, the jokes themselves are more scatterbrained and less focused, but it's a sign of things to come. Season 5 is very hit or miss. There's an over-reliance on slapstick violence to the point it becomes desensitizing. The dialogue is less sharp, and the quality of the storylines is all over the place. The characters have gone through a de-evolution. Ed went from an eccentric comic book geek to a generic idiot guy. Eddy's selfishness and screaming went up to 11. Double D was mostly unscathed. He was more emotionally independent from the other Eds, and he seemed to excel in the school setting. The problem is that their dynamic changed for the worse. It was no longer about 3 punks who shared a legitimate friendship. It turned into one guy who had to babysit 2 annoying crybabies. The other kids suffer a similar decline, but not to the same degree. It's indicative of how the writers explored this new setting. Peach Creek Junior High was an opportunity for new storylines not possible in the summer vacation episodes. What's cool about it is that it expanded the world beyond the realm of the cul-de-sac. The kids go on field trips, take gym classes, and write school newspapers. Think of all the possible scams you can do with this new school setting. It's too bad that half the season treats the school as a vestigial organ. Let's go down some of my favorite and least favorite episodes. Boom Boom goes out the Ed. There's a power outage at night, and the kids try to figure out what's causing it. This is done away from the school, but it's a pretty well executed episode. Okay, I Am Curious Ed. Sarah and Jimmy try to learn where babies come from. Okay, we're doing a sex ed episode, but why aren't they learning this stuff at school? Pretty weak. What's next? Cleanliness is next to Edness. Double D goes on a quest to take a shower on a Saturday? That's the best they could come up with? Seriously? What do all these ideas have in common? They don't take advantage of the school setting. You know, the Ed boys trying to navigate public school? Season 5's whole gimmick was Ed's Declassified School Survival Guide. Speaking of guides, it's Ed versus Ned. Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide was a live-action slapstick comedy on Nickelodeon. One was a live-action cartoon, while another was a cartoon.
Kinda reminds me of the day my brother told me cartoons weren't real.
Both shows have a similar brand of absurdist humor, but the execution was vastly different. And to tell you the truth, Ned's Declassified is what Ed Season 5 should have been. For example, both shows had an episode about school photos. Eddy is trying to take this photo, and Kevin's just being a jerk for no prompted reason, and the humor itself just isn't that good. The Ned version had tighter pacing, the jokes were better set up, and the ending was pretty sweet. I could do this comparison game all day, but you get the gist. This wasn't the only drawback, however. Ed, Ed, and Eddy had a hard limit of showing only 12 characters. Okay, some fans count Plank as a 13th character, but I'm only counting characters who can actually speak, so Plank is not included. This character limit worked the best when we were confined to a single neighborhood. This rule falls apart the minute you expand the scope of the world. You're telling me this school has dozens of students, but only the same 12 kids are seen at any time? There are spectators, but the artists had to bend over backwards to keep them in the shadows. They didn't have to do this. In Ned Declassified, it had a large rotating cast of side characters. They added a lot of depth to the world and they furthered the development of the main trio. And guess what? It made the show more engaging. I get that AKA Cartoon was afraid of adding bloat to their cast, but the current dynamic was getting a little stale after seeing it for 4 seasons. At the very least, they could have added other kids who were non-speaking extras. We could still keep the focus on the characters, but it'd make the world feel less lonely. Season 5 was flawed, but not for a lack of effort. The writing was hit or miss, the slapstick was getting obnoxious, and it had more mediocre episodes than good ones. If you want to see what Season 5 could have been, stick to Ned Declassified. But miraculously, the Ed Boys made a saving throw.
In case of movie break class.
Bingo! A peanut?
Cheap movie.
Ed, Edd and Eddy's Big Picture Show is a 2009 made-for-TV movie that serves as the series finale. The Ed Boys have created their deadliest scam yet, and the cul-de-sac is out for blood. The trio travels by the countryside searching for the protection of Eddy's big brother. Big Picture Show is one hell of an amazing finale. It's funny, visually interesting, and greatly develops the main trio. It's so good, it made me forget the shortcomings of Season 5. This movie has been dissected to death, so I'll keep my review brief. The animation quality is a massive step up. The color choice, the new biomes, and the larger sense of scale. This was the rare time the Ed Boys were in high definition, and it looks pretty good. It has one of the best action scenes I've seen in any movie. The kids pursue the Ed Boys in a high-speed car chase. And my goodness, it would have given Jason Bourne a run for his money. I have to give props to AKA Cartoon. They absolutely killed it. The film's greatest strength is its emotional depth. The Ed Boys were never this vulnerable before. Their friendship is pushed to the brink of ruin. The best scene is when Double D calls out Eddy for his crappy and dishonest behavior. Eddy breaks down, finally admitting to his own mistakes. And the voice acting between the two Eds is freaking wonderful. You can just feel so much catharsis from this scene alone. It's the most beautiful scene in the franchise. But the biggest gut punch was the reveal of Eddy's brother. Throughout the series, Eddy spoke about his brother as a legend. But in reality, he was a dirtbag. Like a real dirtbag. When the Ed Boys finally meet Big Bro, it comes as a shock. Eddy was abused by the one role model he looked up to. We finally have some context to Eddy's behavior. His scams were a desperate plea for him to be accepted by others. Eventually, the Ed Boys give Big Brother a big whooping. Eddy apologizes to everyone for his behavior. The cul-de-sac kids finally accept the Ed Boys as one of their own. You couldn't ask for a more satisfying ending.
Everyone loves us!
And it only took 130 episodes, 4 specials, and a movie, Eddy.
Is it the funniest Cartoon Network movie? That's debatable. I mean, I could nitpick this movie all day. The pacing in the second half wasn't the best. Johnny's superhero subplot was whatever and didn't add anything, but whatever. This is the perfect finale to a great cartoon. It cemented the Ed Boys as a classic forever. Ed, Edd and Eddy was, and still is, my favorite animated series of all time. It's inventive, visually striking, and all around hilarious. So what have the creators been up to since 2009? After the movie was completed, key staff members moved on to other productions. Most notably, some prominent voice actors and storyboard artists worked on My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Meanwhile, Antonucci and his studio did a pilot called Snot Rocket. It's not my favorite pilot. It feels like it's trying to do too many things at once. It never got picked up because Netflix wouldn't grant Antonucci creative control. This is just a pipe dream, but I would love to see Antonucci fund his own Kickstarter project. Maybe he can team up with Glitch Productions. They did an amazing job with their pilot Knights of Guinevere, and if they gave those same resources and talent to Antonucci, they could probably make something good. What about the Ed Boys themselves? The Ed and Eddy franchise has been dormant. The Ed Boys recently had a cameo on the HBO Max series Jellystone. They don't do much, but they do become best bros with Eduardo from Foster's Home.
Amigos, I have become the fourth Ed.
And to tell you the truth, if you're a casual Cartoon Network fan, Jellystone is a great swan song to this era. In the present day, the Ed Boys are finally enjoyed by millennials and Gen Z adults. This video is proof of that. The voice actors have done convention appearances as well. It's good to know the fanbase is still going strong even 30 years later. Ed, Edd and Eddy was foundational to my childhood. It was unashamed of its punk rock roots. It was loud, chaotic, and a pure expression of being an adolescent. Puberty was unforgiving, but the Ed Boys never relented. This show proved that with enough quarters and friendship, anything was possible. There will never ever be another show like Ed and Eddy, and that's fine by me. Thank you for watching, and remember, no Eds were harmed in the making of this video. See ya!